Hi everybody, welcome to my channel, Shatori's Life of Chaos. I had been sitting around thinking, and when I first started my channel that my daughter encouraged me to start, I thought about what I wanted my channel to be. Do you need to work? I thought about what I wanted my channel to be, and I wanted to make sure that it was a space that facilitated healing, trust, and we could talk about like all issues. We tend to put on a smile and a brave face, and I am the master at masking my feelings. I thought that I would take this time to facilitate a healing talk between me and my audience, because when I'm talking, it's typically me and you, wherever you're watching. So I wanted to facilitate some healing. Anyone that's watching this that has sensitivities to topics related to sexual assault, I would advise you to leave it out of the video. While I don't plan to go in depth with details, I am going to be talking about it, so I just want to make sure that I'm sensitive to those who have experienced any type of sexual assault. So let's begin. When I was 16, I went to a party with a friend of mine. I think there were more people for some reason. When I look back at this, the actual place was in a hotel, and the details get a little foggy about who was there. So I went to this hotel party with my friend. I was supposed to be spending the night at her house. Her family was completely cool with her going to the party, and allowed us to take their vehicle, despite my friend not having a license yet. And we went to this party, and I remember drinking. It wasn't like crazy drinking, but it was drinking, and I was still cohesive and aware. Just to let you guys know my mindset at the time, I was still cohesive and just a little buzzed. I had a pager at the time, and I remember frantically looking for it for some reason. I remember that I needed it for something. I can't remember why, but for more than likely it was because I needed to make sure that my mom got in contact with me, because that's how we, talk to each other. Back in the day, she would beat me and then I would call her back. So I was always afraid to miss her calls, and because I was technically supposed to be at this friend's house and I didn't let her know of any party, like I was scared to get in trouble, so I had to make sure that it was on me, and I never found it. I felt like it was stolen or kept from me. But I went to the car to go look for it, and it was just me. I didn't ask anyone to come with me because they were enjoying themselves. One of the people there, which was somebody that I knew in my family, like he was in my family, a family member hung out with him. He was a few years older than me. So I went down to the car, he came with me, and I thought he was doing something nice by coming with me. He didn't really say anything to me. I was just like bent over, like, when you look in the back seat, and I was bent over and like digging, but I wasn't necessarily in the car. It was like halfway out the car, and I was digging around in the back seat looking, and I was looking, and then he came, and then he ended up pushing me in the car and assaulting me. I ended up going back up to the party after, acting like as if nothing happened, and tried to continue the night on. The next day I went home. I decided to go home early, and I went and I took a shower, and I remember my mom complaining about my mood shifts and going into these like really bad mood swings and stuff like that. I didn't tie it to that situation per se, because my home life was a little rocky at the time anyways, but I didn't tie the two together. Emotional immaturity at the time that I didn't tie the two together. But I didn't realize the mood shift. I just thought I was doing like normal teenage behavior, and I was a lot more snappy and rude and withdrawn from that point forward. I didn't receive help, never reported it, didn't do anything. So years pass, because at that time I'm 16, and from that point forward, I remember declaring celibacy for myself. So I was not having any sexual interactions because I had sex with one person prior to this happening that was, you know, my boyfriend of the time. And we had what a teenager considers a committed relationship. We were together for over a year. From 96, I declared celibacy. I wouldn't have any kind of interaction sexually with anybody. I didn't do anything. I didn't kiss, touch, hug, anybody at that point. And I tried to live as normal as a life as I could, not realizing that I was being heavily impacted by these events. So I started drinking from 16 forward, and I was drinking heavily. I was drinking a lot, and there was no end in sight. And I didn't realize it at the time, but all these events happened like so close together. But I thought I was just doing like rebel teenage type stuff, and I didn't tie it to my emotional well-being at that time. Fast forward, I meet my husband, we meet in the club. That story we already spoke about. And but I wasn't intimate with him for months on a sexual scale. And as far as how it went, in the beginning there was a lot of him pursuing sex, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't me pursuing it. I was very closed off sexually, so if he didn't ask me, I wasn't gonna pursue it and be like, oh, I want it so bad, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't like really into it. I portrayed a person that was being sexual when I wasn't being very sexual at that time. And then I would go into peaks and valleys of sexualness. So sometimes it would be like I want to be intimate all the time, and then other times I didn't want any parts of it. So it was just peaks and valleys when it came to my sexual well-being. Around the time that my daughter turned like almost 1, I decided I needed to get help because these things were like plaguing my mind. Like, I'm like, I have a daughter now, I have to be good for my daughter, I have to like make sure that everything's good for my daughter. And that became my primary focus, trying to heal. So I went to a survivors group. The group was awful. They sat around and they kind of recounted these stories over and over again, and that's what I heard. And I was like, how is this facilitating healing? I ended up not going to these meetings anymore, and I decided to go to therapy. I went to therapy, and I was having a hard time opening up. I would sit in there and she would ask me questions, and I basically would just be like, so how was your childhood? Good. You know, what brings you here? I just need to talk, but not talk. And that's kind of like what I did through therapy a lot of the time. She finally got me to open up about like what was going on with me, and I ended up telling her, you know, the things, the sequence of events and everything. And she started digging a little too much, as a therapist would, and I got uncomfortable and I stopped going. Fast forward maybe like a year or 2 later, I was in my apartments because did I say in the beginning? I recorded this so many times. I got sexually assaulted twice. So I was in my apartments at the time, and I was doing laundry. It was late because my husband wasn't there, and I ended up doing laundry right around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning when my kids were sleeping, so that I didn't have to worry about if they were getting into stuff. And when I would leave, I would just lock the door, take the baby monitor, and go. So there was a lot of people in that area that were on drugs. They typically did not bother you or do anything. Like, it was relatively like safe for the most part. But then this night, I don't know like what happened. He asked me for money. Obviously I had quarters, but it was for my laundry, and I was like, no, I'm sorry, I need these for laundry. And then he ended up pushing me into the laundry room, unlocking it, and again, like, I fought like hell this time, but yeah, it didn't end well. And I ended up not saying anything about this again. And I ended up going home, sitting in my bathtub, and just staying there, trying to rinse out this person's essence from my body. And it didn't ever feel clean enough. Like, I scrubbed myself raw, basically, trying to get this person's, like, out of me and their energy, their being, their spirit. And I was just wishing, like, as this was washing down the drain, it could just, like, wash out of my mind at the same time. And it didn't. So the point of me saying all this was, all too often we go through things like this. We smile through pain that no one knows is happening to us. Like, it just really, as people, we're strong. As a people, we're very strong. And I just went about my daily life just feeling like some type of way. Sorry, like, I'm expecting a phone call. Going about my life as if nothing happened, trying to smile for my kids and be there for my husband and trying to be there for my family. I have to call you guys back. Something in me was triggered by her turning 16, because the inner child that was 16 wasn't healed, and so seeing her turn into the 16-year-old that wasn't healed brought so much trauma back to me, and it made me feel like I was being extremely triggered by her just turning 16. And it's really, really crazy. Men and women suffer through this, and it's like even more taboo for a man to say that he was sexually assaulted. Remember all the scrutiny that Terry Crews got for saying what he said. I'm not a fan of his, but that's just an example of what it's like as a man to say that you were sexually assaulted. Especially, I believe he said he was assaulted by another man. So I definitely feel for people in that situation. And guys are supposed to be these sexual beings, so things like that are not supposed to happen to them. But it still does happen. Like, it's not just women, it can be men, it can be anybody, young or old. They have elder abuse and things that have happened to the elderly. So as a part of my healing journey, I had started journaling, and also this is a part of my healing journey as well, is being able to finally open up and say, like, I know that this thing happened to me, but it doesn't define who I am as a person. Oh my gosh. It doesn't define who I am as a person. Like, that is one thing that happened to me, but I've had lots of things happen to me, and they didn't define me as a person, but it definitely left a huge imprint on my life. So if you notice that you never see me in a car by myself, and that's the reason why, because something in my brain told me, if I'm in the car by myself, this is going to happen to me. So I put those two things together, totally irrational thoughts, but I ended up putting them together and creating this space where I was scared to be alone in the car, which manifested into other things. And it's awful that, you know, a childhood trauma that's not dealt with can manifest itself into things that, unbeknownst to you, are affecting your life. You're like, well, this is happening because of this, and you don't really see it, you know, as like, oh, well, the reason why I don't like to be alone in the car is just because it's boring in the car, but it's really not. I just really am triggered by being alone in the car, so I have a lot of hard times, like a lot of flashes in my head, and it's definitely hard moving past things like that. I ended up healing through other methods, like I said, journaling, and finding a space within me that let me know that it wasn't my fault, because the way the victim is portrayed is it is their fault. So, like, you were drinking, you weren't in, you know, your inhibitions were low, you did this, you did that, and no, I didn't ask for any of those things. And no one does. So it doesn't matter if you were in a relationship with somebody. If you say no, no means no, period, point blank. Like, nobody should be able to talk you into something different or make you feel like something different just because you're in a relationship with them. I don't care if I had sex with so and so for 364 days and on the 365th day I don't want to. If you take it upon yourself to feel like that you deserve access to my body, it's the same thing. Like, no one deserves to be treated like that. No one deserves to go through something like that and not be respected and not have their body respected. I'm not a person that typically, people make excuses for things. I know people say things like, well, they were together, so I don't understand why, like, people feel that way. And it's not like that at all. People can be with somebody for a very long time, and if you just don't feel like it, you don't. That doesn't mean that the person that you're with owns rights to your body. No one owns right to your body but you. So you should be able to say no to pretty much anything that you want to, unless they do this mandatory vaccination, which I feel is a violation as well. But you should be able to say no to anything. Like, it shouldn't be a thing where it's debated. It's not something that should be debated. Like, well, you were in a relationship, or you were drunk, or you were this. It's not anything that should be debated. No means the freaking no. Okay? And as far as kids go, I don't agree with people that are like, forcing their kids to hug or kiss. I spoke about this in a boundaries video, and anyone that first forces their kids to hug and kiss somebody that they're uncomfortable doing that with, if they're not comfortable, they're just not comfortable. Don't have them doing that, because that doesn't make sense. You're actually teaching them that it's okay to be violated when you're not respecting their wishes and telling them to sit on Uncle Joe's lap and give him a hug. If they're not comfortable, they're just not comfortable, and leave it at such. Like, I know my kids, they have been called a ton of things because they're not comfortable with people, and I don't really care. I end up just not talking to them, you know what I mean? Because I'm not the one. I'm not going to be like, go hug your so-and-so. No, if you don't feel like it, you just don't feel like you need to. And I feel like kids should have a choice to say, no, I don't feel comfortable hugging this person. And also, like, watch how your kids interact with people. You can tell a lot about how kids interact with the people around them, and if they feel comfortable or not. And if they don't, they just don't. Please respect your kids' boundaries and don't force them on people, because that is teaching them the wrong thing. Like, oh, it doesn't matter how I feel, I just have to do this anyway. And that's not fair, because no means no. I remember there was this great debate, I don't remember in what year it was, but about spousal rape, and no still means no. I know they looked at women as property not that long ago. Like, it was titled with the house, the dog, your woman, your car, like, all those things were grouped together as property. But those times have changed, okay? Those things are no longer in existence. So we're nobody's property. We have every right to say no to whatever we want to say, despite what politicians think while they're debating our uteruses in Congress. Like, no means no. I love you guys so much. Thank you for joining me. I'm sorry it was yet another one of those deep topics, but that's just how I work. I love you guys so much. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and comment down below. And if you have any topics that you would like me to speak on, I'd gladly like to hear any and all topics. And I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, folks. I'm out.